She spoke, that means we're on. Good evening, folks. I'm afraid I'm back up and running in my own right on Socialist Telly after a bit of a hiatus with a new weekly show, an activist show, talking to campaigners and activists about the work they're doing, the causes they're raising, discussing these issues, the effects they're having on people and society, and dare I say it, have a bit of a collective rant about it. Right now, the biggest cause for concern there for a great many of us is the impending cost of living crisis. It's already started for a lot of us, quite frankly, especially after Rishi Sunak failed to deliver anything meaningful to help ordinary people on incomes getting squeezed in a multitude of different ways. But arguably, the biggest failure has come when it came to energy. The government have failed to intervene, haven't limited profiteering, and with Ofgem, the energy regulator, having raised the price cap, supposedly there to protect us from paying too much without giving us means with which to take on such large price rises, many more people are going to struggle to pay. 1.3 million people face going into absolute poverty, including 500,000 children. But the good people of Disability Against Cuts, DPAC in Sheffield, have proposed a pushback against this, the big power off on April the 1st. If the government and the energy companies are taking us for fools, well, a better day they couldn't have picked. To discuss this with me tonight, I am joined by DPAC Sheffield's finest, Jennifer and David. Thank you for joining me today, folks. How are you?
Hi, Damo. Thanks for having us on today.
Pleasure to have you back, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Pleasure to meet you, David.
Nice to meet you.
Well, I thought we would start with a wee video you made, Jen, talking about the big power off. So, shall we have a look at that?
There have been rolling cost of living demonstrations around the UK, and these are building each time, which is amazing. But there are other ways in which we can take action. DPAC Sheffield are spearheading the Big Power Off protest, which is something that people can take part in from their own homes. April the 1st will be the first of many rolling household protests. Firstly, it's important to note that there are people who absolutely must keep their heating and various equipment on in their own homes due to disabilities. Secondly, there are other ways that we can help facilitate people to take part, so please get in touch. We are putting a call out right now for you to send us your experiences of how the household energy prices will affect you. Will the rises cause you to go without essentials? How much are your own bills increasing by? Are you even in a position to be able to afford to pay the predicted bills that you've been sent by your energy provider? We want to help you have your voice heard, so DM us with your stories, or we can also retweet or repost your stories when shared using the campaign hashtag so that we can find them. There are various ways in which you can reduce energy consumption on April the 1st as part of the Big Power Off. Turn the heating down or use the cooker to prepare hot food. Skip bath or shower that day. Don't use equipment that emits heat. Or commit to eating cold foods only that day. Turn off non-essential electrical items at the plug, or drink cold drinks all day, which is a tricky one for us tea lovers. We also must acknowledge that some people have no option at the moment not to eat cold foods, and some of us are those people. We're asking for no financial donations, only for your group, union, political parties, solidarity. Will you take part and post solidarity selfie? Will you make a big power of banner, perhaps using upcycled materials? Commit to inviting a speaker to your next meeting. We can march, we can protest on the streets, and it's very important we continue to stand up in as many ways and as often as we can. But sadly, new laws do mean potentially we can be shut down. The beauty of the Big Power Up is there's absolutely nothing the government can do to stop it. What are they going to do? Waltz in and demand us to put heating on? This campaign will hit the energy companies where it hurts the most, the profits. Together we can and will take the power back. Join the Big Power Off today. Solidarity.
Well, hey, Jennifer, fantastic little video there. Thank you very much for producing that. And well explained as ever. I will be joining in, and that's very much the idea, isn't it? To get as many people involved as possible. How did you guys come up with the idea for this, though?
Well, basically, as I'm sure a lot of your viewers are aware, there have been these rolling cost of living demonstrations from people like the People's Assembly, supported by all sorts of unions, organisations and groups, including Disabled People Against Cuts, of course. I mean, we have our amazing comrade from London, Paula Peters, speaking at the People's Assembly demo in London this Saturday. One of the issues that we have, though, being a disabled people's organisation, is that there's just so many members that can't physically get to demonstrations but who want to be involved. We got to thinking, David and I got to thinking, what can we do to create a platform, to create a space, a virtual space if necessary, so that people who can't physically go to demos can be heard, can take part in protest. And then of course, the more we talked, we started thinking about, well, how much do we use? And just think, these electricity and gas companies, are they going to be expecting the big coins coming in on Friday, aren't they, when they put those prices up 54%? And as we all know, it's going to go up again in October. I won't sit here reeling off stats, because we all know what the stats are. They're all over the media, aren't they? So we got to thinking, well, what if that doesn't happen? What if, for example, during the advertisement break on Coronation Street this Friday, what if everybody doesn't get up and put their kettle on? Because we know there's this phenomenon, isn't there, called TV pickup. And that's where a vast number of households in Britain rise from their sofas, go to the kitchen and put the kettle on a Friday afternoon, evening, while they're watching their entertainment, their soaps and that. And the National Grid does have to brace for that surge in demand. What if that surge in demand isn't there? What if people don't go and put their kettle on at 7:30 on Friday? And how will that then affect their profits? We have to start thinking about, yes, protesting in the streets is important, and it does need to continue, of course it does. But how do we include people who can't go out to protest? And how do we take direct action that is going to affect these profits? There is absolutely nothing the police or government can do about this protest, nothing whatsoever. And that's the beauty of it. But of course, like everything else, it'll only work if everybody gets involved. So that's how we came up with it.
It is clever in that regard, actually, because as you say, if people can get involved in this protest from their own home, people will be protesting from behind closed doors. Doesn't matter how many bills to do with policing that the government might want to introduce. They can't police people protesting from behind their closed doors. And as you said in your video, nobody can force you to boil the kettle or put your heating on. But it just makes me wonder what kind of effect this would have on the energy companies. I mean, as you went over and you explained that, okay, we'll interrupt their surges of a weekday evening because Coronation Street has hit its break in the middle of the show and people are off to make a cuppa. But we are only talking one day here, aren't we?
I'll pass over to David.
By all means, yeah. Either of you jump in. By all means, it's not. I'm not doing it in any kind of formal way.
Yes, I mean the 1st of April is the day when the energy price rises go up. But it's going to be another price hike in October as well. This is by no means the end of the matter as far as the energy suppliers or the government that work for them are concerned. So this is going to be an ongoing thing for at least another year. And the murderous effects are going to be felt they're being felt now. Like, we've heard of people who, have been sitting in the dark for 3 days, elderly people sitting in the dark for 3 days because they already now cannot afford to keep their heating on or use their oven. So they're sitting in the dark with no hot drinks and no hot food, relying on neighbours to help them out in the middle of a pandemic. And these are people whose care support packages have already been cut because of the effects of the pandemic. They're already shielding because of the effects of the pandemic, so spending more time inside. And then this happens, this whole massive profiteering exercise from the energy suppliers and the government who work for them, not for us, happens. And it's going to happen again in October. So, yes, this is one day, and obviously we need as many people to take part as possible for it to have any sort of effect. We don't know what the effects will be, and that's often the case with protests. You don't know what the immediate effects are going to be. Often there is no immediate feedback from a protest, and the effects are felt later on as things gather and as a protest snowballs. We've seen that with lots of other DPAC actions. We have no idea what effect it's having at that time. It's only so many weeks or months later that we know what the actual effect is going to be. you can put stats out there. Jen and I looked at the average usage for gas and electricity for UK households, and we reckon that if every household, I think there's about 27.8 million households in the UK, if every household took part on the 1st of April, the energy suppliers would lose about £150 million in profit. Now, obviously, not every household is going to take part. It would be a minute fraction of that. But if we start somewhere, it has a chance of snowballing into something bigger as the word gets out. You know, if friends and neighbours say, well, I took part in this big power off, and there's going to be another one whenever we decide the next one's going to be. And hopefully that will grow. That's happened with lots of protests. That happened, with UK and Cut, for instance. UK and Cut were protesting about the tax dodging of massive corporations. First, very few people to know, like handfuls of people. And then it grew, you started with 5. A year later, you have 100 on the protest, and everybody was talking about it on social media. And then political parties are taking on board that message, saying, yes, we're going to stamp out tax dodging. It sort of grew over a number of years. So it might be that it takes a year or two for it to become a mass movement or part of a mass movement. But we can't wait for anybody else to do anything. As you said, especially with disabled people, it's very difficult to get out there on the streets at the best of times. And when there's a pandemic and people are trying to shield from a pandemic that's been let rip by a government that doesn't care about anybody, let alone apart from themselves, very wealthy, let alone disabled people. You have to think about things that are going to be inclusive, and that disabled people and the families and the carers can take part in actively, and have some power and some agency. So we'll just have to see how it goes.
Yeah, no, I completely concur with the points that you're making. It's a 54% rise in energy bills now. As you say, in October, it's set to go up by 40% again. What people need to realise with that is that's 40% on top of the 54% rise now. So it's almost a bigger rise in October rather than what's going to happen now. It's proportionally, it's a bigger increase then.
It's a compound.
Absolutely, it snowballs, exactly that. And I think certainly if this is the first of several big power offs that are going to start, at least this first one, getting it out, getting some attention to it, when, as horrible as it sounds, but when this starts to bite and affect a lot more people, when those bills start actually coming in, they realise just how much worse off they are, just for the sake of heating their homes or powering their homes. You might well find that you get a great deal more support coming in on that. And I think that's absolutely the way these things so often go. Now, I know one of your pet hates, Jennifer, is the often used phrase, which is choosing between heating and eating. And I know people are going to look at this and they'll be thinking in terms of that as well. And David has alluded to people who have already been making that choice. It is being used again now, but people have forgotten that, ever since food banks really became fixtures in our towns and cities, when, ever since the Tories launched their austerity assault on the British public, people have already been making that choice. And if more people are expected to be making that choice from next month, what's going to happen to the people that have already been making that choice up until now?
Well, that's the thing precisely, Damo, and this is why I've got such a gripe with people, particularly politicians and people and mainstream media, parroting that phrase, heating or eating. It really does minimise what people are going through, what people have been going through for the last 12 years of austerity under the Condem and then the Conservative government, 12 years of the cuts to benefits, cuts to services, the DLA change over to PIP, the introduction of universal credit, you name it. This government has decimated pockets of communities all over the nation where people were struggling but just about getting by. This is not about heating or eating. It's about, can you keep your body clean, even in just a basic way? Can you afford toothpaste? Can you afford things to wash your clothes in? Personally, right now, my washing machine sat with washing in it ready to go. I haven't got any laundry liquid, right? I'll be able to get some on Friday. I'll be able to get some then. But like a lot of people, you literally are living hand to mouth, hand to mouth. So could I wash them on a cold cycle with no powdering? Probably, yeah. Would I then be walking about stinking? Probably, yeah. And this is the thing. If we just say just heating or eating, it's forgetting so many other things. There are vast amounts of disabled people, disabled children or disabled adults in this country who have to keep their electricity running because of vital medical equipment. And these can be things like oxygen concentrators, their electric powered wheelchairs and other mobility aids, hoists for people to get in and out of bed or in and out of their mobility cars and so on and so forth, right? So what happens then if people can't have any of those things operational? That's not a heating or eating thing. And using that heating or eating phrase just completely ignores the suffering of all the people that are having to struggle through all these other various ways. You know, parents going, I mean, like myself and other people in the area where I live, which is a very poor area of Sheffield. It's a big council estate and there's a lot of deprivation, a lot of lone parents families. I'm a lone parent, and just a lot of poverty, a lot of people on a low income or on benefits in this area, and people are struggling so much that people are already living in the red. You know, everything that people have is on tap or on the drip, so to speak. You know, you're having to pay off this creditor and this debt and this creditor and this debt, and it's just a big, massive, confused mess of robbing Peter to pay Paul. So when the price goes up, it's not just about heating or eating. For a lot of people who are already only just getting by, it's survive or die. It is really that simple. And we saw last year with the excess winter deaths in this country, there were over 30,000 excess winter deaths last year. And if you look on the government website, it does say how many of them actually are directly related to people living in a cold home. So people dying because their home is cold, and the vast majority again of these are elderly and disabled people. That's why they're vulnerable to being cold in the first place. So this is before the price rises. It's before they even come in. What on earth is going to become of elderly and disabled people or long-term sick people in this country this winter when these prices go up? Because it isn't an if, is it? It isn't a question of if. It's a question of when. And it was absolutely heartbreaking today to see Martin Lewis, the money-saving expert, actually begged Dominic Raab to do something to protect the lives of disabled people in this country. And of course the ministers just roll off, oh, we've put so many millions of pounds into this and so many billions of pounds into that. Oh, have they really? Have they really? Because site after site of energy grant funds and support that you go on, and you can check now the British Gas one, for example, that they're talking about in the press. Oh, we've got this brilliant energy grant fund. Go and look on it. It's closed. It's closed to applications, Damo. Yeah. So where is that money? And what are people supposed to do? Because these increases haven't even come in. People are applying to these funds to the point that they're getting shut down because of the influx of requests before these increases even come in.
Yeah.
What on earth are people going to do when they do?
Charities
not eating.
Charities are struggling.
David, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you know, charity is a cold hard thing. You know, this is the thing with charities as well.
Thing, yeah.
They're struggling as well. Because a cold loveless thing, because charities are struggling because of people's economic situations. People are struggling to donate as much to charity, and because of the way charities operate, you know, I won't go too much into that. So their funds are drying up as well in terms of what they can actually do, what grants they can provide for people. I mean, like Jen says, this is not a new thing. You know, we've had the pandemic, over 2 years of it, which has basically, it's been another cull of disabled people, of the, 180,000 people that have died, you know, with the official stats within 28, with COVID on the death certificate. Yeah. 2/3 of those people were disabled, Damo.
Yeah.
That's the scale of the death of disabled people. And before that, because of austerity, it's hard to put a true figure on it, but tens of thousands of people died, disabled people died because of cuts to social care, cuts to social security, cuts to the NHS. So it goes on top of that. And, we've had every year there are tens of thousands of winter deaths. I mean, I remember about 10 years ago taking part in a action in Sheffield where we blocked a road outside Sheffield Town Hall, and I had a big sign saying energy prices kill, because that year there had been a big winter death toll. And of course, the cars are there and the buses are there and the taxis are there, not moving. And this guy comes up to me and he starts arguing with me, saying, it's not going to make any difference. We just want to go home and eat our teas. And I said, well, we can't afford to cook our teas. That's why we're doing this. And it's moved beyond that. Like Jen says, now it is, people can't afford, it's not a cost of living crisis, it's a cost of dying crisis, because you are being bled financially so that you have nothing to live on. You have not only do you have no life because of the, as we say, because people can't afford to actually do anything, go anywhere, use the equipment that they need to actually try and live an independent life, or any kind of life. They are actually going to die because of these prices, whilst we are being leached from the wealthiest people, shareholders of the energy suppliers that do nothing, absolutely nothing for what they get. Commodity speculators who speculate on the price of oil and gas, raking in millions. Mostly still fossil fuels. So, we have no choice but to use these resources which are destroying our planet. And the people that use the least, i.e. the poorest and disabled people, use the least resources by default, because they don't have the money to live in big houses or drive cars or go on holidays or fly around the world or use a lot of appliances. We keep tabs on expenses anyway. We are the ones that are going to be dying because of that. And that's the kind of world we live in. And that's why we can't wait. Yes, it's okay that it's good that Martin Lewis is saying things, but we can't let people talk across us. Celebrities aren't going to come to the rescue. They're not in our position. They do not know the half of it. They'll know some of it. And if they've got good natures, they'll speak up, but they do not know the half of what people are going through because of their position as celebrities. Politicians don't care. The Labour Party and the unions, where is the true opposition? After what we've been going through over these years, where the opposition is nowhere. They're in lockstep. They might say a few things and a few so-called forensic things to attack the government, but their position is the same, because they support all the privatisation and profiteering of energy supplies and everything else. So we can't rely on them to do anything. We've shown that over the years. So we have to do things ourselves. It is a fight for our lives.
Yeah, it is. It is sad.
It will be for more people as well, because that's the thing. More people will be dragged into this. People that thought they weren't going to get into this position will be dragged down into this, swamp of desperation, and not know what to do, because there's been no solidarity from the people that should have been showing solidarity and caring about them for many, many years. So that's why we have to take action ourselves.
Yeah, no, I completely concur. Martin Lewis has been very good at speaking out and saying that, this is a guy that has spent years trying to help people manage their finances and keep their bills down in various different ways. For him to go on TV and basically say he's at the end of his rope, end of his tether, there's no advice he can offer now to help people with this. It's just purely a deficiency of income that is going to hurt people here, and there's nothing they can do. There's no belt tightening they can do that's going to help them with this. It's a massive indictment on how badly the government is throwing the British public under the bus over this, and disabled people and pensioners particularly. They got offered absolutely nothing in Sunak's recent spring statement, nothing whatsoever. And of course, they're the people that are most susceptible to being affected by this. They're more vulnerable to this than anybody because they have these additional power needs. As Jennifer quite rightly said, you need it not just for heat and food, but powered for equipment, keeping medications cold in the fridge. And these price rises are going to hit them harder than anyone else. Now, I'll share a bit of my own situation at this moment. I got rolled off onto Shell Energy when my energy provider went under, along with 27 others in the recent several months. And I went on there to see if there was anything they could do to help me get my bills down. And I asked them about the Warm Homes discount, which has been around for years. There's been a facility to help those on limited means, those who have particular health issues, to reduce their bills. And they've suspended it. So it doesn't matter how much your additional energy needs are, you cannot get that additional help. The guy was really apologetic on the phone. There is literally nothing that Shell, I can't speak for other companies, but I think it's a similar story across the board, are willing to do, despite making something like £40 billion worth in profits. It's quite disgusting. So we've got the energy companies not willing to help. You've got the government not willing to help. You've got a lack of opposition who are in, as you quite rightly said, David, are basically in lockstep with the government and are not offering an opposition at the moment. You have a demographic or two demographics in at least disabled and pensioners that are more vulnerable than anyone else and have been offered absolutely zero help in the recent spring statement. They are very much at the sharp end of what's coming down the road. What would you say to these people right now?
What, the people who are supposed to be opposing what's actually happening?
Well, the people who, disabled people generally, or pensioners who are at the sharp end of this now, who are being offered absolutely no help. The government has refused to step in and help. The energy companies have refused to step in and help. Just for the record, I've got 2 disabled people in my household, so we would qualify for that additional help. But it's not there anymore. It's been taken away. So
yeah, it's been taken away.
Used to be in place have gone.
They're changing the terms of the warm home discount, and I think those changes are still taking place at the moment. So the warm home discount scheme used to be, for people who don't know, something that can be accessed if you've got a child in your home that's on DLA, an elderly person that receives attendance allowance, or a disabled adult who receives PIP. That's some of the terms of what you have to fit to be able to apply for the warm home discount scheme, which is £140 a year. And that comes to you in tokens for your meter or comes off your bill. But basically, yeah, they're changing the terms of it. It was announced in the Daily Mirror earlier this month. I think it was around the 10th of March, that anyone who's on DLA or PIP or attendance allowance now will not qualify for the warm home discount scheme. And that, like you say, it's an absolute punch in the guts. But yeah, there's nothing that the government's doing. There's nothing that the Labour Party's doing. There's obviously there's individual MPs, but that's quite frankly not enough. It needs to be all of them, and I will be firm about that, because it absolutely has to be, because if they don't, people are going to die. Children are going to be taken into care. Children are at risk of dying because of what's going on as well. Now, get off your backside and do something, because God knows they get a pretty penny for going and sitting in the House of Commons every day. So go in the House of Commons and defend and protect our lives and our rights with every single inch of your being, if you want any of us to give you a vote ever, ever again. Because if you don't, quite frankly, we're done. We're done, right? We're done with unions that don't speak up about this. And some unions have been rather quiet on this, haven't they? Possibly because of the people that they represent. What good is that going to do anybody when their own members will be being put into poverty because of things that they didn't stand up against? Because some of their members work for some of the companies that are involved in providing energy. Sorry, Damo, it's absolutely fucked.
That just shows how the wider union movement has been led down up a garden path by what you call, free market capitalism over the last 40 years. Not being there just basically to put in deals of pay and conditions and things like that, rather than think about wider society and the effects that things like energy price rises have on people. So there's all that sort of historical background to that, and quite frankly, with this on top of the 2 years of a pandemic and what workers have been going through, the absolute patheticness of most of the union movement is quite revealing to me, to my mind. What I would have expected to happen in the situation where tens of thousands of people are dying and are still at risk of death because they're expected to go to work and make a profit for the ruling class, and then there's just about nothing from the unions about that situation, and nothing from the unions about the situation now with the fuel price increases. So that's why we have to do things ourselves, and all change in society, and this is this historical precedent has come from the grassroots. Yes, political parties might pick up on it later. They might use it as a campaigning tool, and they might, say it was their idea. And
there's some political advantage to it.
Yeah, unions might do it, but you can't wait for that, and you have to always treat them with a huge element of mistrust. What are their motives? Why aren't they doing this, or why are they doing this now?
Really hard, isn't it, David? Because when it was for example, when it was universal credit first being talked about, anyone can look at Disabled People Against Cuts were warning about the effects of universal credit as far back as 2010. People like Debbie Jolly, God rest her soul, were putting out articles, and there were demonstrations, and we tried to engage with people's union branches, CLPs, local organisations, advice centres. We tried to engage with people all over the country. Various DPAC members did do. Gail Ward in particular was a real spearheader of that, as well as Paula Peters, Ellen Clifford and others. But it wasn't until the point that people were finding themselves in that situation where they had a 12-week wait or longer, because remember, initially it wasn't a 5-week wait for your first payment. It was basically you get it when you get it, and people were getting into debt with their rent and council tax and so on and so forth, and having to go to a food bank. Then we had the huge food bank rise. We warned of all of this, but it was only when people started basically dropping like flies that any of the politicians got off the backsides and did anything. We warned trade unions, which I won't name, but we did warn some of the trade unions, you're going to need to train up universal credit advice workers within your union to support your members, because your low paid members are going to end up on universal credit, and they're going to need your help, and you're going to need to know how to help them. And things just didn't get done. Now, at what point are we allowed to say, why aren't our voices good enough to listen to? Because we are some of the many people who are at the bottom of, like David said earlier, this just swamp of deprivation and desperation and worry and the constant financial stripping that goes on from the minute you open your eyes to the minute you close them at night. Why aren't our voices good enough to listen to? Well, this campaign, Big Power Off, is a truly grassroots campaign. It's not affiliated to any political party or any union. We're just ordinary people who thought really hard about how we can build an inclusive campaign that people can take part in, whether they're disabled or not, from home. But the reason we had to do that is because people who get a lot of money for organising within workplaces and communities and political parties did not at all to enable people that can't physically get out to protest. Yeah. I mean, how hard would it be to have, for example, if there was an anti-cuts demo by a big movement or union? How hard would it be for them to have a big screen and for somebody who can't physically get out to speak so that they're represented to appear on the screen? With all the technology we've got these days, with how much blooming Zooming and Teams and all this.
We were saying it about 10 years ago, weren't we? Why? You've got social media.
Why aren't they doing it? They need to start doing it. But Damo, can I just slightly change the subject? Because you said earlier about what can we say to people who are facing these cuts. And from my point of view, I'm being as practical as possible. And I know from what some of the tweets and emails and stuff like that we're getting, that other people are too. I'd be damned if I'm going to give E.ON, my provider, I'm be damned if I'm going to give them a penny over what I have to give them for my essentials, right? So what I'm starting to investigate and build a little kit to, one, save me some pennies, and 2, to introduce some renewable energy into the home. So do you want to see what I've got?
Well, I was going to say we're going to come on to some of the things that people can be doing. We'll come on to that now, shall we? The big power off itself. Of course, as you said earlier on, not everybody's able to completely power down. There's limits to what people can do because of medical equipment, and absolutely nobody should endanger themselves or put themselves at risk in order to take part in this. I know you put out a request for people to come forward and tell you what they're going to be doing to reduce energy consumption, and I know you're dying to show us what you're going to be doing. So, how imaginative are you going to be, and how imaginative have other people been in the suggestions that you asked people to come up with?
Well, there have been quite a range of suggestions that people are pledging to do. There's one gentleman who's tweeted us, you'll be able to see his tweet if you look for the big power off hashtag, and he said he's adamant that on Friday morning he's getting up, he's going to turn off his electricity and his boiler at the mains, that's it, and all day long he's not going to use them, but health-wise he's okay to do that, right? Now, then with other people, they're thinking about what devices are around my home that emit heat. So hair straighteners, hair dryer. So one of our friends, Tiffy, the lovely Tiffy on Twitter, a lot of you will know her. She's pledged she's not going to use a hair dryer. She's going to go to work just with a hair tied back. That's, so that's a heat emitting device. And also for people are pledging not to use their kettle all day long as well, and concentrating really in that evening schedule where there's that big surge where everyone goes and puts their kettles on. What I'm doing is I'm pledging not to drink tea all day long, which is going to be really, really difficult. Being a Yorkshire lass, we do like our tea. Whatever time of day it is today, I don't know. I've had at least 27 cups of tea today. I've had 2 while we've been speaking. But yeah, so I'm not going to be using my kettle for future big power offs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save up for an insulated jug. But I've not got money to get one just yet. But I know people that have got them, and they're going to make tea the night before and keep it in their insulated jug, and they'll have that for the next day. But what I did have enough pennies for was this little beauty. Look at this. Get ready. Free energy. Look at that. Yeah, Eon, in your face.
That's brilliant. I love it.
It might not look like much, but I've got 3 of these. They were just a couple of £1 each. And
the garden centre or something like that. They're like the gardens, aren't
they? The garden centres, like similar shops like B&M. What's that one called? Dunelm.
Home Bargain, places like that. Other retailers are available.
Yeah.
Let's not give them any.
But the other thing I've got.
They'll be profiteering on this now. Put the price of all these up. Yeah.
But the other thing I've got, which was a fair few quid, but it'll pay for itself in the long run, is this, which is the type of thing that you use if you go camping, so like camping and fishing shops, and that'll have on my websites. And this is a solar powered phone charger. So I'm going to so my phone will be being powered by the sunshine all day long on Friday. So and just my last thing, a good friend got me this lovely present. Look at that.
Oh, brilliant. The hashtag on it already.
Such a spoilt brat.
Is it?
But how about it?
What is it, Jen?
It is a little tiny power bank that says big power off on it.
Right.
So that's got one mobile phone charge in it as well. So there's lots of different things people can do. Oh, the other thing is I'm going to have my dinner outside with a little fire. Going to just boil my pasta on a little fire in my mate's garden, like a camping trip sort of thing. So we're having a lot of fun with it. Also, while sharing how much people are struggling with what's happening. But I know that David's got something that I'm very jealous of, actually.
Well, yes,
David.
I should have brought other stuff. I've got a power bank as well. I've got some battery-powered lanterns, which I keep in case of power cuts anyway. But I've got this, which I actually got a few years ago. It's a wind-up radio.
I say it looks like one of those disposable cameras from here, but yeah, it is a bit.
Yeah, well, from the 90s, yeah. So you wind it up. It's good exercise for your fingers. That keeps you warm. This keeps you warm just doing this, just like the exercise.
Yeah.
and then you just switch it on. And it's got a solar panel on top. So if you're outside, it takes the energy from the old soleil, which is, we've got the biggest power source going in the sky, yet here we are still using dead phytoplankton and in the form of oil and gas and stuff like that. And being charged for it and dying because of it in various ways, and people are getting rich, obscenely rich from it. This is the consequences of many years of relying on fossil fuels and people charging literally the earth.
I had no idea gadgets like this existed running on solar power like they do. And it is a perfectly valid point, actually. You get all these things, they can run from the sun. Why can we not get more of our energy needs from renewables like that? Then perhaps we wouldn't be so beholden to
a lot of profits to
so
be
often foreign-owned energy companies. I mean, EDF is French, British Gas is owned by Centrica, and they're German. It's we're paying to subsidise their energy needs and their services, and such is the case with so many privatised things. But
the ridiculous thing is, it's what you call a natural monopoly.
Yeah.
The gas supplies and electricity supplies, they come from various sources, still mainly fossil fuels, but also what you call renewables, solar and nuclear. But they all go onto the national grid.
Yeah.
Everybody is getting it from the same power lines. You can't choose where you get it from. You can't say, well, here at number 1 Arcadia Avenue, I'm going to get all my energy from a wind turbine out in Dartmoor, and number 2 is going to get all their energy just from a coal power fire station, because that doesn't work like that. It just comes down your grid, and you can't choose what it is, and it's all the same stuff. Yet you have a situation where you've got all these competing energy supplies. Well, they don't compete because they're now a cartel, because most of the small ones have gone under, charging widely different amounts. You could be paying a widely different amount to your next door neighbour for the same resource coming down the same infrastructure, but because it's in a free-for-all, capitalist free-for-all, they can charge different amounts for it, which never used to happen when it was a nationalized utility.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it is just
it's that craziness of the market will provide, and it obviously, like everything else, it hasn't. It's just one of those things that Thatcherite ideas that have gone off into insane levels, and we're in a situation we're in now.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right in what you're saying. You effectively, the only thing that changes is maybe a couple of pounds here or there, and the name of the company at the top of your bill. I mean, water is a fantastic example of a monopoly, because when was the last time you decided to shop around with your water company? You can't. It doesn't work like that. And of course, all these exorbitant bills are going into lining shareholders' pockets and not into, improving the service or reducing bills, which a nationalised service would. So every time
a public service would.
Yeah, every time a politician pops up and says, "Oh well, we can't afford to renationalise; it would cost us too much money." Actually, it's costing us money more for you to not do it. And it's got to stop. It's got to end. For myself, I mean, I will be taking part in the big power off on Friday. Fun and games for me, who goes and sits in my little mini studio here and starts to rant and rave about whatever story of the day has vexed me most on that particular occasion. I'm going to have to go back to being old school and making sure my mobile phone's charged and doing it all on that. So all this is shut down. We'll be having salad. My beloved coffee machine is going to have to sit there, and I shall be filling a rather large flask and hoping for the best, frankly. But it's one day, and it's important that as many people as possible take part in this. And you've had plenty of support out there as well. As much as this is a first event, and people will pick up on it, and more people will get behind it, especially as they start to feel perhaps the pain of this going on. The hashtag Big Power Off is popping up all over social media, Twitter especially. People are putting it in their social media handles. It's getting a lot of conversation, including media attention, and not just local media to you guys in Sheffield. The Star have covered it. The Canary have covered it. You must be quite pleased, actually, that the momentum the campaign's has gained already?
I'm absolutely thrilled. I am. I think we've really hit on something. You know that phrase, "This idea's got legs." We've really hit on something with this idea that, and yeah, it's our idea, but we don't own it. You know, it's not copyrighted to us. What people can do with this concept of the big power of is have a look at it, have a look at their own daily routine, and make it work for them. That's what's so brilliant about it, along with, as you say, the police and government not being able to do absolutely anything at all about this protest, because they can't force us to do anything we don't want to do within our own homes with electric and gas devices that we're operating. But yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. There's been support from Breakthrough Party have been really supportive actually since we first started tweeting about it, and their members, Ian Hodson and Sarah Woolley of the Bakers Union. They've been supportive of it. Other than these sorts of people, a couple of MPs have retweeted it. I think John McDonnell and Ian Byrne have retweeted the campaign sort of concept idea that we put a couple of weeks ago. Other than that, it really has been entirely grassroots. We've got people getting in touch and sending in videos from the different areas of the country. I want to share one of my pledges for Friday, which I'm actually really sad that I won't be using this thing on Friday. So just have a care for me a moment.
Oh, my heart bleeds for you.
So gutted that I won't be using the iron this Friday. Oh well, but you know, all joking aside, yeah, there's so many bits and bobs that you can just tweak about your daily routine. And Damo, I'm sure David is also as thrilled as I am that you're going to such levels to take part in it on Friday. I mean, we're having one or two things, but what, you're having salad for tea, even if it's cold and windy, you're going to still have salad.
Well, I do live in Cornwall. The weather is, well, let's not start talking about weather with people who live in Sheffield.
The Arctic Circle.
Here all day. I mean, I suppose it could be cold pasties all around then. Proper
pasties. There's nothing wrong with a cold pasty.
Nothing at all. But you know what we'll do?
Cut it in half. You save half for the next day.
I'll send you some Henderson's relish to put on them.
I love a cold pasty.
Oh dear, bless her. Do you still get pasties sent up your way from your family down here, Jen?
My mum, I can make them. Actually, can make them proper ones. Yeah, because Mum's from Redruth, isn't she? So
that's it.
Mum says it's only a proper Cornish pasty if it's cooked in the Cornish air. So before she shuts the oven door, she farts.
Fabulous. That's going out now. That's going out to our entire we get 40,000 views on these on a good day. Your poor windy mother. Now we completely digressed and lost the plot here slightly, haven't we? Let's come back to it in all seriousness though, because this for an awful lot of people this is not going to be a laughing matter. What sort of stories are you hearing from some of your membership and people who are involved in your organisation about what their fears are in what they're facing coming up?
I think a lot of people, I'll just say briefly before David, but a lot of people are posting what their price increases are going to be. And as we said earlier, and as we all know, this is just that 54% price increase in April. But there are other people who've been paying by direct debit for a long time with their companies who haven't been paying enough on their direct debit for what they're actually currently using. So one woman I spoke to yesterday was sent her new predicted direct debit for the next term. I'm assuming she does it quarterly, but it's over £600 increase just for that period, because she's in debt because and a lot of people are finding this. They're in debt because the direct debit weren't enough in the first place. But there again, there's another person we spoke to who lives in a town other than Sheffield. I will make that clear so that none of our local MPs panic, although we have put this person in touch with their local MP and Citizens Advice, just to reassure people. But I spoke to a gentleman who lives in another town, and what happened is his mother had passed away. He is a disabled person himself. He had a couple of weeks away from the home and just to sort of clear his head, etc., grieving through the loss of his mum. And when he got home, what he didn't know was that his mum owed a lot of money to the gas company. Bailiffs had smashed a window entered the property, installed a meter for gas, which has now got several £100s of debt on it. Oh, this is before these price increases come in. So whatever he puts on it, he's not getting anything at all, because he can only afford a few quid here and there. Like a lot of people, he's one of the disabled people who, when the benefits moved from DLA over to PIP, he was like knocked off, even though he had a lifetime award. He was messed about and you know, treated unfairly by the DWP and the assessors, and so wasn't awarded the PIP. So he's just basically living on the very most basic ESA, trying to put £5 and £10 in that meter when he can, and all that happens is it gets eaten by the debt and the standing charge. What happens next is the companies can move to then take people's debts from their benefits before they get paid their benefits, and we're hearing that from other people too. That can happen with people's water debt, gas or electricity, as well as other things like court fines and stuff like that aren't really relevant to this particular subject about energy, so we'll stick to that. But yeah, people are looking at the predictive bills that are going to come in after April, on and after April the 1st, and saying we're not going to be able to pay them. I've looked at mine. I can tell you now, there's no way I'm going to be able to pay. So I'm going to just, you know, go a bit Ray Mears and just try and survive and try and look at what I can make and do. And I'm sure a lot of other people will be doing the same. But while we're all at it, we do need to do as much as we can to support each other too.
Yes. There needs to be solidarity in this situation, because we need to stick together right now. It's awful that the word you chose, you had to use there, is surviving. We're supposedly the 6th richest nation on earth. We're supposed to be this massively wealthy country, but the wealth inequality in this country is so bad now. I mean, you have had wealthy people begging Sunak to tax them more, but of course there are other wealthy people out there who donate to the Tory party who won't like that. So
a lot of people, shareholders in energy suppliers as well.
Indeed.
Probably on both sides of the house.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that people have been saying is, you know, it's not just the energy price rises, there's everything else involved, you know, the inflation levels, food prices, rents, you know, the cost of fuel, if they're still lucky enough to have a mobility car and use one, public transport prices, things like now having to pay for lateral flow tests from April, if you know you want to protect your family. So it's going to be a question of, well, do I get lateral flow tests and protect my family? You know, so no, I've got COVID and can reassure people that I haven't got COVID, or do I do that, or do I not pay for another essential? Everything is about making a profit for the ruling class. It's come to that stage where just everything, every day, you can't turn your head without something. You have to do making a profit, a massive profit for somebody else. And then on top of that, you've got things like the ongoing and rapid privatisation of the NHS. So all the ongoing effects that this will have on people's health, combined mental and physical health. Then they find the services aren't there to help them, you know.
Yeah, that's it.
Or because of the pandemic overwhelming the hospital services or the GPs, they can't do that. So then, if they want anything happening, they're either forced to use whatever they've got to pay for a private provider. You know, the people haven't got that. So it's just going to be more suffering.
Yeah.
Because of this ideological obsession that everything has to be there for profit.
It does feel like we're getting to a point now where there's going to be a reckoning over this, because the needs for making a profit out of everything, as you've just said, David, is costing everybody dear. People can't make ends meet just for basic essentials. We have come up to the end of our time, folks. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to the both of you about this. Please do join in with the Big Power Off if you can. Do use the hashtag, do tweet about it. Do see what you can do to limit your power usage on Friday. Switch a few items off, go the whole hog and switch everything off, as some people are going to do. send a message to the power companies that you're sick of being exploited, frankly, for the sake of lining a shareholder's pocket. Millions are going to struggle whilst they make billions in profits, and that can't be right. Not when we're being effectively abandoned by both them and government and all of our representatives on both sides of the house. It's not right. I hope you've enjoyed the show today. I'll be back each week to looking to discuss matters with activists or campaign groups with issues that matter to them, politics of the day, issues or actions you're involved in. Please do get in touch with Socialist Telly if you would like to take part in one of those shows. And please do, Jen and David, come back on another day to talk about how the big power off is going, how perhaps we'll come back next week even, and see how things have gone over this week and see what the outcomes of that have been. And we shall talk some more on this, because I don't think it's an issue that's going to be going away anytime soon, and it's one that we certainly need to keep a focus on. Thanks very much for your time tonight, folks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Damo.
Take care.